organizing this. Can you hear me? How's that? So I'm going to pick up where Rita left off. I'm going to describe the U.S. government refugee resettlement program, the role that we play as a refugee resettlement agency, what's going on in your neighboring state of Connecticut, and then move into what you all can do to participate. I spent a lot of time in refugee camps before beginning this job about 11 years ago. I worked in refugee camps all over the Middle East and in parts of Africa. And I have some very strong memories of my experiences in refugee camps. And it's probably not what you're thinking. It's not that horrible smell of raw sewage. It's not marveling at the incredible structures that refugees have built out of scraps of wood and pieces of plastic and cardboard. It's not the suffering and the traumatized people. It's not even the anger that many refugees felt toward me, an American. What I remember most visiting refugee camps, and this is camps in Pakistan and southeastern Turkey and Gaza Strip and Lebanon, even Somalia. What I remember most from visiting refugee camps is the amazing hospitality that refugees showed me. I was coming from the wealthiest, most powerful country on earth, and refugees who had lost so much gave me a lesson in generosity and hospitality. They would put on a pot of water for coffee or tea. They would serve me their last bit of food. They would spend what little money they had on a package of cookies. They would find a chair for me to sit in. They wanted me to be comfortable. They would set aside any feelings of political anger or any other problems they had at that moment. The most important thing was to show me hospitality. So I would be sipping that delicious sweet tea or that coffee made with cardamom. I remember it. And I would say to them in the Arabic that I had learned as a Peace Corps volunteer, and I know there's some Arabic speakers here who will keep me honest. I would say, تجوا إلى الولايات المتحدة لازم تزوروني أنا أريد أضيفكم زي أنتم ضيفتوني. If you ever come to the United States, you've got to visit me because I want to show you the hospitality that you have shown me. That was like 30 years ago. I had no idea what I was going to be doing today. As fate would have it, that is my job now. I run a refugee resettlement agency, and our job is to welcome refugees from all over the world, maybe the friends and relatives of the people who welcomed me, and help them start new lives in this country. Well, let's start with a family, a Syrian refugee family in Jordan. Fatima, Ahmed, Salim, and Saeed. Okay? You're going to play the part of Fatima, Barbara? Yes. All right, you're Ahmed, Salim, and Saeed. You have been sweating it out in a refugee camp in Jordan. You have passed through this rigorous security screening. You've been fingerprinted so many times, your thumbs are black. And finally, you have made it through. You've had a health screening to make sure you don't have any communicable diseases. And then you're going to be asked, okay, do you know anyone in the United States, Fatima and Ahmed, do you know anyone in the United States where you could go and be resettled and maybe they would help with your resettlement? Now, if you happen to have an Uncle Muhammad in Detroit, you might go to Detroit. But if you don't know anyone in the United States, the four of you will be arbitrarily assigned to any state, including a state that you have never heard of and you don't know how to pronounce, like Connecticut. Pack your bags, get ready to go. Ahmed ran a used clothing shop in Holmes. Fatima was studying to be an English teacher, but she only lasted 4 months in university. The war broke out and she had to stop. Neither of them speak English. Their two children, Salim and Saeed. Salim is 5 years old. Right here, Salim, your son. 5 years old. pretty heavily traumatized. He saw some horrible things and hasn't been sleeping too well at night. Saeed has an injury in his leg that hasn't healed properly, and that's what has moved you up high on the list of vulnerable families. That's why you've been selected for resettlement in the United States. While you're packing your bags, over here, oh, the mic doesn't move, over here in New Haven, I get an email from the State Department, and it says, a lovely family of 4, it's a State Department memo, so it doesn't say lovely. A family of 4 from Syria, living in Jordan for 4 years, is coming to the United States, coming to New Haven, Connecticut. Get ready. What do I have to do? Well, my case management team has to run out and find an apartment. We'll find maybe you'll squeeze into a 1-2-bedroom apartment. We need to gather up furniture, used furniture. We don't buy anything new. We can't afford it, but we do buy new mattresses. So you can thank the bed bug epidemic in this country. Refugees will get new mattresses. We furnish the apartment with the help of volunteers. We stock the kitchen with about 3 days worth of food. And then we find someone in the neighborhood who can cook a culturally appropriate hot meal to serve you after you arrive. You're laughing. I know you think that's my idea. What a quaint policy. It is a federal government requirement. Wow is right. That refugees must be served within 2 hours of their arrival a culturally appropriate hot meal. So if they're coming from Sudan, it's a Sudanese meal. If they're coming from Eritrea, it's Eritrean. If they're coming from Syria, it is a Syrian dish. So we'll find somebody, maybe somebody in this neighborhood, maybe somebody in this congregation who can cook a Syrian meal to serve you after you arrive. We get all this ready. You arrive at JFK. The International Organization of Migration will put you on a minivan and you'll zip up 95, you'll arrive in New Haven, you'll be met by a case manager and an interpreter. You don't speak English. It's always late at night. Salam and Saeed are both crying. You look a little terrified, but still a little excited. We bundle you up in warm winter coats, hats, scarves, gloves, and then we whisk you off to your apartment. You eat that culturally appropriate hot meal, you have a good night's sleep, and then the next day we bring you into our office. And by the way, what I just described is happening all over the country now. There are 350 refugee resettlement agencies like ours spread across the United States. 350. This is why we were going crazy over the summer, telling our government in Washington, we have a network to resettle more refugees. We can take more than 85,000. We should triple the number of refugees we bring to this country. Look back to 1980 when 200,000 refugees came from Southeast Asia. We can do the same now. We've got the capacity. But no, the response was just 20% increase to 85,000. Where was I? You've been brought into the office by the case manager after you have your good night's sleep, and we sit the 4 of you down. We say, Fatima and Ahmed, we're going to enroll your 2 children in school. Saeed and Salam will be enrolled in school, but first we're going to take care of your health care needs. You've been neglecting your health for years living in that refugee camp. Ahmed has a terrible abscess tooth that he has to have taken care of. Fatima's got a slew of health issues that she's been ignoring. And then, of course, there's the post-traumatic stress issue that Salam is wrestling with, and then Saeed's injury to his leg. We have a wonderful hospital in New Haven that will take care of you. We'll help you learn English. We have an English language class right in our office, and we're going to help you find a job. Now, Ahmed dreams of opening up another used clothing store, maybe in New Haven, but that won't be your first job, Ahmed. You'll be lucky if you get a job washing dishes at the Archie Moore's restaurant bar just down the street from the office. It's a good job, and it's a good start. And if you work hard, you'll work your way up. The kids are going to learn English faster than the adults. Before you know it, Saeed is the family interpreter, speaking English better than all 3 of you combined. And before you know it, Ahmed has been moved from part-time to full-time because he's impressed his manager at Archie Moore's as the hardest worker, best dishwasher he's ever seen. Time out, true story. There is a refugee from Syria who got a job as a dishwasher at Archie Moore's in New Haven, and the manager told me a month ago, he's the best dishwasher I've ever hired. Your ability to work full-time and pay your rent allows Fatima to fulfill her immediate objective of going back to school and studying English. So she enrolls at Gateway Community College. She's off and running. The family's needs are taken care of, and before you know it, get your green card a year after you've arrived. 5 years later, you become U.S. citizens. This is the best thing this country does. Welcoming persecuted people from all over the world, helping them start new lives. It is an amazing program, and it is incredible to me that it could become so controversial and at a time like this. So let me tell you a quick story. November 17th, several days after the horrible atrocities in Paris, and a couple of days after 30 governors from across the country said, we don't want to accept any Syrian refugees, I got a call from one of those 9 organizations that organize refugee resettlement. Reva mentioned that HIAS is one of them. Episcopal Migration Ministry is another one. So Episcopal Migration Ministry gives me a call and they say, Chris, we have a problem. Can you do me a favor? I said, what's the problem? Of course we'll help out. I said, well, we have a family of refugees from Jordan. They're actually in an airplane, in the air, headed toward Indianapolis, Indiana. November 17th. Chris, she told me, you know what's going on in Indiana. The Governor Pence, has said, we do not want Syrian refugees in Indiana. She asked me if I could take the family in New Haven, Connecticut. What do you think I said? Of course, this is what we do. It's a no-brainer. I didn't even have to think about it. We welcomed the family. They overnighted in New York. They got, instead of getting on a plane to go to Indianapolis, they got into a minivan and they came up to New Haven. We welcomed them, a lovely family. The governor of Connecticut, who had days earlier, when asked by journalists, so do you, Governor Malloy in Connecticut, do you welcome Syrian refugees? And he said, of course I do. Our Constitution says we should not discriminate against any legal resident on the basis of their sex or their religion or their color or their nationality. I stand by the Constitution and I welcome all refugees who have gone through that rigorous screening process and have made their way to this great country. He actually came down and shook the hands of the 3 Syrians who had arrived. They're doing well now. Since the summer, when compassion and support for refugees reached an all-time high, as Reva mentioned, we have had an amazing outpouring of support. Especially from people in Indiana who were so embarrassed and disgusted by their governor's position, they were sending us emails and support for this family. By the way, it was a family of 3 with a 4-year-old boy, and for about a month in my office, there was a pile of toys that people from all over the country had sent to the 4-year-old child. So the support is there. Over the past 10 years, an average of about 3 community groups would knock on my door at my organization and say, we want to be part of this refugee resettlement program. We want to co-sponsor a refugee family. We want to work with you, Iris, and welcome a family into our community. An average of about 3 groups would do that every year. Since August last year, we've had 55 community groups step forward. And there's some in the audience now, so give them a round of applause. Stand up if you're with a community group. I know Stanford is here, and Warren. They will be receiving refugee families sometime soon. So with all of this support, I turned to Washington and said, last year you sent us 240 refugees. This year, double it. Send us 500. Why shouldn't more refugees come to a place where they're going to be welcomed? The State Department hasn't quite met our goal of 500, but they have promised to send us 420. With your help, we will give refugees the warm welcome they deserve. Thank you very much.